Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India Habitat Center and Professor Benoy K Behl. Today's talk is the 34th in his monthly series, Glimpses of Culture. The corpus of surviving Indian art is enormous. It covers 5,000 years of living history. This treasure is spread about 3,000 kilometers from east to west and more than 3,000 kilometers from north to south. Therefore, it has been a daunting task for art historians to see the art of India in its perspective. Usually, fragments of this history have been looked at and studied in comparative isolation. That is where the single-handed, widespread documentation of Indian art by Professor Behl is invaluable. Through his vision and analysis, we are able to see each section of this great treasure in its wide perspective. We are also able to trace the developments of this artistic tradition over the centuries, as well as to see its deep links with philosophic heritage. Recently, he has taken us to the earliest art in the Indus Valley and Maurya periods. He then took us to the philosophic fundamentals of this art tradition, which were formulated by the 2nd century BCE. He has taken us to a world of grace, where beauty of form is used to transform us and to reveal the truth which underlies creation. Today, he takes us to the sculptural wonderland of Mamallapuram on the eastern coast of India. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Benoy K Behl will speak to you now, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sujata Chatterji, for that kind introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the ancient art of India is that it was an art which was not patronized by kings or rulers, but it was in fact an art of the people. It was an art which was patronized by the common people of this vast land. Now, how do we know this? We know this from thousands of inscriptions which survive right across the length and breadth of this country. At all the grand monuments of Buddhist and Hindu heritage that we have. So, what are these inscriptions? Now, for instance, at the great stupa at Sanchi, 641 inscriptions still survive, which are as follows. One inscription says, I am a housewife and I have donated the making of one pillar of this railing of the stupa. Another inscription says, I am a fisherman and I have patronized the making of a section of the architrave of the gateway of this stupa. Another one says, I'm a tailor and I have patronized another section of the great edifice. In fact, one of the remarkable things is that more than half the inscriptions are of women. So from this, we also know that women in ancient India had a very high position. They not only they had, in fact, the finances at their command to back what they believed and what they said. And here, coming to Mamallapuram, we have reached a period of transition. It is under the Pallavas, it is with Mamallapuram and subsequent monuments of the Pallavas that kings, for the first time, begin to directly patronize the making of Indian temples. And we will see here at Mamallapuram, and we will see beyond Mamallapuram in later centuries what changes this will bring about. Because, of course, here at Mamallapuram itself, the guilds of artists remain the same. The guilds of artists are still carrying on in the ancient tradition. Now, what is it that makes the ancient tradition what it is? It is a very personalized form of art. It is an art made for the people. It is an art which each person responds to. Each person has an opportunity to respond to the grace of the art and to lose himself, to put aside the cares and confusions of the material world and find the joy which is inside himself. So it is this deeply personalized, wonderful art of the ancient period. How does it? How is this reflected at Mamallapuram? Now, as an instance, when you have the grand and epic depiction of Lord Krishna lifting Mount Govardhan and saving the village from the storm. Now, it is an epic theme, it is a huge and grand theme. But even while this theme on this scale is unfolding in front of us, what do we see? We also see that with the peace restored, a cowherd is milking his cow. And while she is being milked, the cow turns and licks her calf. Now this is the world of nature. This is the world of everyday life. This is what touches our heart completely. This is what the ancient art never forgets. No matter how grand the themes, we are not lost in grandeur. We always have very personalized touches that awaken the joy within us, that awaken the deep relationship that we have with the divine and with the art. As another instance, the epic theme, the grand theme made on a huge scale at Mamallapuram, the descent of the Ganga coming down to earth. Now, while this grand theme is being made, the artist is not forgetting the rest of the world. The artist is making the teeming world of nature, and in that, he's also making elephants. And while he makes the elephant, he does not forget the babies of the elephant. It is these touches again which take us always into a very real and very human and very humane world, a world in which we are touched. So such is the quality of the ancient art which carries on at Mamallapuram. As a matter of fact, it is this which makes it is um, among the last flowerings in India of the qualities of the ancient art, an art which is recognized as among the finest art of humankind. And we will also see the other changes which are taking place. We will see that the patronage of kings, other changes are taking place and will take place in subsequent centuries after Mamallapuram. My many thanks to India Habitat Center. It is wonderful of India Habitat Center to give me these opportunities to share the qualities of ancient Indian art with all of you. My thanks to Doordarshan, my heartfelt thanks to Doordarshan who have lived up to their qualities as a public broadcaster, even in the very commercialized world. For decades, Doordarshan patronized by projects, by extremely serious, deeply researched projects, which would not have had the entertainment value which normally broadcasters are looking for these days. I remain deeply grateful to them. And my many thanks to Sujata Chatterji, who is an immense support in all that I do. And may I request you, Sunil, now to run the film, please. Thank you.
Mamallapuram is on the coast of Tamil Nadu. It was a busy port in times gone by. Coins found here and literary evidence testify to flourishing trade 2000 years ago with Rome, Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka and other places.
Actually, there are many archaeological sites in and around this Mamallapuram, which yielded Roman potteries and also Roman coins. Some of them are Roman coins. But it's in this particular site in which we excavated, there is much of the 1st century AD coins or 1st century BC coins have been discovered during 1930s by Britishers.
In ancient times, the sailors who came here from distant lands must have been fascinated when they stepped ashore. It was a city where boulders and hills were transformed into a magical world by sculptors. Surely there was no other such place in the world.
Mamallapuram, what used to be called Mahabalipuram, is really the beginning of art and architecture in Tamil Nadu. And the transition from rock cut to structural architecture is there. And we have this fantastic mix of cave temples, of monolithic temples, of structural temples, all embellished with the most beautiful and the most refined sculptural compositions. And there is no doubt that late 7th, early 8th century Pallava sculpture was never really surpassed in the whole history of Tamil art.
"1,400 years ago, when ships from distant lands would have come to the port of Mamallapuram, the sailors would have gotten off the ships and soon they would have seen in front of them this wondrous sight, a hill face which has been transformed by sculptors to represent the teeming life of the world. There are figures here of men and animals carved with skill, delicacy and sensitivity. Imagine how they would have described this place when they went back home. This exuberance of sculptural art took place under the rule of the Pallavas. By the end of the 6th century, the Pallava rulers from present-day Andhra Pradesh extended their control over much of Tamil Nadu. They created the first large empire of South India. This port town was called Mamalai or Great Hill. The Pallava king Narasimhavarman, known as Mamalla or the Great Warrior, expanded the facilities of the port. Narasimhavarman changed the name of the port to Mamallapuram, or City of Mamalla. Here, over perhaps 100 years, from about 630 to 728 AD, marvellous monuments were cut out of outcrops of hard grey granite. The magnificent temples of Mamallapuram reflect fully developed styles of South Indian temples. Obviously, such temples must have been made for a long time prior to this period. The earlier ones must have been made out of wood and other materials which have not survived. Facing the ancient port and not very far from it is one of the marvels of the sculptural art of India. A granite hill face almost 100 feet by 50 feet has been transformed into a world of divine and earthly beings. This giant relief is believed to be of the early or middle 7th century. This tableau presents the auspicious moment of the descent of the river Ganga to bestow her blessings and her treasure of fertility to the world. Some scholars have also interpreted this scene to be of the penance of Arjuna, the hero of the epic Mahabharata. A deep cleft in the rock has been artfully used to represent the great river as she descends. We see Bhagirath, the sage, performing great penance and imploring Shiva to bear the force of the fall of the river. Next to him stands Shiva, whose gesture indicates that he is granting a boon to the ascetic. Nagas and Naginis, divine serpents who live in the waters, are made swimming up the river. A teeming world in a forest has been created. About 100 figures of animals, men, women and divine beings all turn in reverence towards the life-giving river. These have all been made approximately life-sized and with great sensitivity and naturalism. Below Shiva, we see a shrine of Vishnu with an elderly sage and disciples before it. To the side of the river, other ascetics perform puja and penance.
I don't think we have anywhere else in Tamil art anything that is greater. So it's one of those beginnings which are also the greatest moments. And the quality of Pallava sculpture is remarkable because we have to remember that it's all cut into this rather crystalline, not extremely fine granite. So it's extremely difficult to model figures in this type of material. You cannot make very deep carving, but you can make very rounded carving.
Not very far from the vast relief is another depicting the same subject. However, this is unfinished. A little to the side of the great descent of the Ganga, a Krishna Govardhana is carved out of a boulder. Lord Krishna holds up the Govardhana mountain to protect the village from the fury of the storm. It is a charming scene. With peace restored and the storm forgotten, a cowherd plays the flute. Another milks a cow. This is one of the finest depictions of rustic life in Indian art.
And there is a sort of melting, three-dimensional quality to these reliefs, which I think is very remarkable, very delicate, and very emotional. And the delicate way in which the animals and the herdspeople are shown, the delicate way in which Krishna's brother is reassured that nothing will happen, it will be okay, the storm will not affect the villagers, is very touching.
Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the art of ancient India is the sensitivity and even love which is shown towards all living beings. We see here not only the close observation of the life of animals, but even tenderness which is expressed in the manner in which the cow licks her calf while she is being milked.
Again, in the whole history of Indian sculpture, you won't see anything which is more naturalistic and more delicately rendered. So there's a wonderful relationship between the artist and the world of humans and animals, which we don't get in later Indian art. Even in Tamil Nadu, things become much more rigid, much more restricted. We have great icons of Shiva and Vishnu and the goddess in various forms, but that sort of delicacy, that everyday world, disappears from Indian sculpture.
When this theme was carved in Pallava times, behind Krishna there was a whole hill. There was nothing made in front. So if you stood before it, you would see Krishna lifting the hill. Somewhere around the 16th century, somebody must have thought this is a sculpture of a deity. So they built a mandapa or hall in front of it. A formal purpose may have been served by this, but the effect of the sculpture was lost. The soft rendering and slender forms of the Pallava idiom in sculpture are again seen in the Varaha Mandapa of around the middle of the 7th century. There are 4 major sculptural panels in the cave. Vishnu is seen in the Varaha avatar. He saves the earth goddess Bhudevi from being submerged in the ocean. Vishnu is again presented in the form of Trivikrama, the conqueror of the 3 worlds. The rear wall of the cave has Gajalakshmi made on it. Lakshmi, who represents prosperity, is here bathed by elephants who pour water upon her. A cave of a very unusual form is made on the outskirts of Mamallapuram. 11 Vyalas or lions with horns are made on the facade. One of the most magnificent depictions in Mamallapuram is that of Mahishasur-Mardini, made in a 7th century cave. Mahishasur-Mardini, where Durga destroys the Mahisha, the buffalo, the demon of our ignorance, is one of the most favorite themes of the Indian artist. And this depiction of the 7th century is one of the most beautiful depictions ever. The lines of the composition are very dynamic. On the one hand, we have the regal and proud Durga advancing upon the Mahisha. And on the other side, the Mahisha leans away and all his followers lean away as if to get away from Durga and her army. The self-assured Ganas of Durga's army are unforgettable. There is a sense of dynamic movement expressed by every line in this composition. Even the strings of jewels below her bosom are made curved with the movement as she goes forward.
But we have no doubt about who is going to win in this battle. But as an expression of, I would say, dynamism, of force and of movement, it's absolutely unsurpassed. And it contrasts in the most dramatic and obvious way with a panel on the other side of the cave temple, and this shows Vishnu asleep on the coils of Ananta or Shesha, the cosmic serpent, dreaming of the universe yet to be created. And as in many representations, the hoods of the serpent rise over the head of the sleeping god. And it's such a repose, such a quiet, serene composition can hardly be imagined anywhere else in Indian art, and of course completely different to Durga on the other side.
In Mamallapuram, there are 9 freestanding temples cut out of boulders. 5 of these form one group. These are the earliest such edifices in India, which are carved both on the outside and the inside out of a single rock. These are popularly called rathas or temple chariots. This is a misnomer as they are actually temples. These are a marvellous record in stone of the many forms of temple architecture in South India at that time. The temples are named after the 5 Pandava brothers of the Mahabharata epic and their common wife Draupadi. They form a coherent group and were probably made in the middle of the 7th century. The smallest temple is called the Draupadi Ratha. It has a curved roof which is believed to be modelled after the thatched roofs of that period. The shrine is dedicated to Durga. The lion on which she rides is made outside the temple. Arjuna's Ratha is an early example of a developed South Indian style temple. The 2-tiered pyramidal roof is capped by a dome-like element called a stuti. Half figures are made on the upper levels, which convey the impression that they are partly hidden owing to the viewer's perspective from below. Bhima's Ratha is a rare record of a barrel-vaulted temple. The long shape is appropriate for the large depiction of the reclining Vishnu, which remains unfinished inside. The unfinished Dharmaraja Ratha is the largest of the group. Inscriptions with the name of Narasimhavarman I, also known as Mamalla, suggest that the temple was begun in his time. It presents the fully developed South Indian temple style as seen in the Arjuna Ratha. These form the basis of the temples to come in the later Chola, Vijayanagara and Nayaka periods. There is a unique feature about the art of ancient India. Through hundreds of years, thousands of works of art were created. These depicted deities. They also depicted birds, animals, trees, common people, and yet they never showed a portrait of the king in whose rule all this art was created. In fact, there were no portraits at all. For in the Indian thinking, personalities are ephemeral things. We come and we go, and we do not really matter. In fact, the important thing is to lose the ego and to realize that which is important, that which is beyond our egos and personalities. Therefore, portraits were never made in ancient Indian art. It is only in the 7th century, during the rule of King Mahendravarman, that we have the first portrait of a king, which is seen in the Adi Varaha cave at Mamallapuram. We see him and his wives. We also see his son, King Narasimhavarman, with his wives there. And here in the 5 Rathas, we see King Narasimhavarman made outside the cave temple. Now, with the direct patronage of temples by Pallava rulers, these are significant changes which we start seeing in the tradition of Indian temples and art. The 5th temple of the group has an apsidal shape, which is not used very often in Indian temples. This is known as an elephant back-shaped temple. Built right next to the lapping waves of the sea, one of the glories of Mamallapuram is a temple with 2 towers, known as the Shore Temple. The finely worked, slender towers are among the most beautiful of any structure in India. The temple was probably made by Narasimha Varman II, Rajasimha, in the early 8th century. It is believed to have established the tradition of building structural stone temples in Tamil Nadu. Over 1200 years of salt-laden winds have taken their toll, and the profusion of sculptures on the temple has been considerably eroded. However, what remains shows the highest standards of artistic achievement. The shore temple was built later as the sea withdrew. Early in the first millennium, the sea used to come up till here. And the wall that I'm sitting on used to be a breakwater. Large ships used to come all the way in and used to be moored here. The recent excavation of a 4th century temple at Mamallapuram has pushed back the known dating of the site. Literary evidence and historical evidence would suggest that there must have been many grand temples here since at least the 1st century AD.
After the last the tsunami, we could find some inscriptions on the boulder. So then we started exploring the entire area. We could find some more the architectural pieces all around. Then we started more scientific excavations in and around that boulder. We could suddenly find within 1 meter depth, we could find some more Pallava inscriptions. There was a brick temple. That is very interesting brick temple. It's belonging to pre-Pallava era, earlier than the 3rd century AD. Then we started the full excavation. Then we found a full temple, a small Garbhagriha and also Ardha Mandapa and a small Mandapa in front. And we found round about 350 to 400 AD, there was a tsunami-like attack over the coast, and that has pulled down this temple. But interesting aspect of this temple is that it is one of the earliest temples so far discovered in Tamil Nadu, which we can climb.
What gives the art of ancient India a special place is its vision of the world. A view which sees the same in each of us, in men and women, in animals, even in plants and trees. It sees a unity in the whole of creation, which imparts a great harmony and compassion to this vision. Ancient Indian art is very special in the way that it portrays animals, birds, the whole of nature. It seems very important for the early sculptors to convey the breath of life of these animals. At Mamallapuram, we see some of the greatest examples of this naturalistic art, filled with the tender vision of the artist.
So indeed, besides being a period of some of the most beautiful themes of ancient art of India, Mamallapuram is also presents a period of transition. As the film said, earlier in Indian art, there were no portraits. The ephemeral personality was not the focus of the art. People like you and I just come and go. It was only the eternal themes which were the focus of the art. But now, with the patronage of temples having shifted to kings themselves, we see that royal portraits have started to be made. And as you can imagine, this will have much effect upon later Indian art. There is so much at Mamallapuram which needs to be noted. We see the 5 rathas, and we note here that these are the earliest temples which are the result of boulders being carved on the outside and on the inside. So temples which are carved inside and outside out of boulders. And very soon after this was done, late, perhaps in the 7th century at Mamallapuram, you find that in many parts of India, it was followed up with similar work on a grand scale. Near Kanyakumari at Kalagumalai in the 8th century, the Vattuvan Koil was made, where a huge hill was transformed into a temple sculpted inside and outside. And how can we forget Cave 16, Kailashnath Temple of Ellora, where a truly vast hill is transformed into a multi-storied temple with many structures. Absolutely amazing. And while this is happening at in Himachal Pradesh, at Masroor, we find a temple with 5 towers was cut out of the hill. So the earliest that this began to happen was in fact here at Mamallapuram. Mamallapuram is an amazing site, and of course, the main reason to fall in love with it is the exquisite quality of the art. All that is made so well, whether it is the Mahishasur made so remarkably well. And again, you would note the quality which comes from the ancient art, which is to be seen in tiny realistic details which the art of later centuries forgot. As was pointed out in the film, even her necklaces are seen moving with her movement. So it is these are the details which you see right from the paintings of Ajanta onwards, and these are remarkable, realistic, naturalistic details of ancient Indian art. I would be very happy to answer a few questions, and if you would put them in the chat box, Sujata will read them out to me. Thank you.
There's a comment from Tarun saying camera work was very good. I hope you have saved all the footage somewhere.
Indeed, the footage is available for the future. Yes. Thank you, Tarun.
Divya, sir, you mentioned some works in the complex were not completed. Any idea why this happened and some works were left incomplete?
This is the case, especially with rock cut sculpture, or call it architecture, in different locations in the country. And there would be different reasons each time. And we may not always know these reasons. Thank you.
Rupal Ahuja, it's a comment saying, a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
There's another comment. Jane Sochiat, so beautiful film and so beautiful scenery. Thank you so much, sir, for the film.
thank you very much, Cheng Sochiat. It is always very kind of you to appreciate these films. Thank you.
There's a question from Mark. How long would have been an average time to sculpt the rock-cut temples?
That's a very interesting question to which we do not really have any answer, which is a pity. But all one can say is that the quantity of the work is so huge that it must have been fairly quick. You look at sites of rock cut art such as Ellora, or you look at sites like Ajanta, or you look at sites like Mamallapuram. There's so much rock cut art which is created. But we really don't have any idea of the exact amount of time which is in. Thank you.
There's a comment from Meghna saying Namaste and thank you, Benoy ji. Awesome sharing. Kind wishes from Malaysia.
Thank you very much. So the changes which take place in this period of transition, we will see in time to come and in the films which will be seen in the next few months. Essentially, we begin to draw away from the deeply personalized art of the ancient period. When the kings are patronizing the art and temples, the temples gradually begin to be made as much for the purpose of displaying the grandeur of the king and the grandeur of the Lord, as much as the divine purpose. So gradually, size and grandeur begin to take over, which is very impressive. The temples become very large and they become very impressive. The quality of art, the quality of the sculpture is not the same. It becomes comparatively wooden. So the ancient period is of a special value to us. And therefore, a site like Mamallapuram shows us the last period of that quality of art is of enormous importance.
This is a question from Divya. Given that this complex was close to the shore, has it been affected by erosion or wind, etc., and to what extent? They seem remarkably well preserved from the visuals.
Yes, yes. The shore temple, which is right next to the sea, has been most deeply affected by the erosion of the wind, bringing in the salt-laden wind. So there, the sculptures have been eroded considerably. But as we come a little inside, they're not eroded so much. I suppose that is because this is a hard granite. Thank you.
I think that's about it.
Well, thank you all very much. My thanks again to the Habitat Center. My thanks to Sunil for an excellent screening. And to all of you, it was a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you, sir.